Yo guys, what is good? Welcome back on the Uncle Sharma channel here to preview Fiorentina versus Inter tomorrow, 7:45 p.m. UK time kickoff. But first of all, Grazie Baldanzi. Thank you to Baldanzi, who scored today against Juve. Juve were playing against Empoli at home at the Allianz Stadium, and I had zero hopes of Empoli doing us any favors. But luckily, their new manager bounced recently. Davide Nicola, who was the guy that did those miracles with Salernitana, if you remember this last season, keeping them up in Serie A. He is back, but managing Empoli, bringing his 3-5-2 back. And Baldanzi has actually been recently linked to Roma with a move to Roma very recently. 15 to 17 million euro is the rumor. Roma want to sign him. The young, talented Italian midfielder / striker came through with a right-footed goal from the edge of the box. And then Arik Milik got himself sent off as well just before that goal. So Allegri, who has been talking his talk this in the build-up to this weekend, punished. And for those who have missed it, what I'm referring to is Allegri's press conference just the other day, where he was asked, and by the way, I actually don't blame Allegri fully for this, because Italian journalists have this kind of obsession with doing these comparisons between sports, whether it's tennis or F1. They always ask these questions. They ask the same question to Pioli. So it's not even like Allegri went out and made this comparison, but he answered it, and the game is the game. So they asked him, Sinner, who beat Djokovic the other day in the tennis game, they asked him, do you think between you and Inter, who's Sinner, who is Djokovic? And he said, difficult to say, but I could say since that we are younger, we're Sinner and they are Djokovic. But I don't know, they're a bit touchy. I don't know how they will take. And he's referring to the fact that he's called us he recently referred to the Inter and Juve Scudetto race as the cops and robbers, the robbers running away from the cops, and he referred to as Juve as the cops and us as the robbers. Little digs at that and other things around horses. He loves like horse racing and things like that. He always refers to things like that. But he never gets a reply from Inzaghi. That's the funniest thing. He's always trying to do these little things. Again, he's not even trying. He's just answering questions from journalists, but he answers. But Inzaghi, we know, even when they will ask Inzaghi about this, soon, and Inzaghi will just, completely bypass it, not answer it. Marotta is the one that might say some stuff about it, and that's maybe who Allegri is referring to here. But it's good to see that, that little cheeky banter that he's trying to, maybe trigger Inzaghi, maybe trigger into players by having these little, very, very sneaky little jabs, very Allegri-like. I do enjoy it. And low-key, I wouldn't mind if Inzaghi, started giving his little jabs in the, of himself, but that's just not Inzaghi. That's our boy, our man. Some people might say boring, well, I say boring, but also classy and maybe smart to avoid all this whilst we're in the middle of a title race. But anyway, great result today, which means that the pressure is on for tomorrow's game away. If you're not at home, away. Of course, at home this season, we beat them at the beginning of the season. A resounding 4-0. Really, really good result. And our recent history against Fiorentina is good, but also there's a lot of goals usually between Inter and Fiorentina. If you see over the last couple of seasons, as I said, 4-0 the least in one, but then before that, away last season, we beat them 2-1. But that was this is the Coppa Italia final, 2-1. We beat them in the final. And then at home, if you remember, this is the game that we lost 1-0. This is where we, I don't know, created like a crazy amount of XG. Must have been like through 2-3 XG, if I remember correctly. And there was a massive Lukaku miss as well. I remember. I think that was my thumbnail that day of my match reaction. It was Lukaku's miss was my thumbnail. I just remember it very vividly. And that was another one of those games where I'm like, I think that was maybe is that the 11th loss or the 12th loss of the season? Like it was, because that was, April by that time. So it must have been one of those ones where the losses were racking up. But then if we look at before then, we had that crazy game, if you remember, with Mkhitaryan scored that last minute goal where the ball bounced off him away, 4-3, and then 1-1, and then 3-1. So in general, like it's as you can see, Inter 1-4, Fiorentina 1-1, but in general it's very close matches or high scoring matches. So it's never a given, this Fiorentina game, and they are doing quite well. I don't know why the cameras keeps going out of zoom, and they are doing quite well this season. Fiorentina. If we have a look at quickly this Opta analyst article, shout out to boy Otlo, by the way, who sent this to me. I usually do look at Opta analyst once in a while, though, maybe more in the middle of the season, at the end of the season. But he pointed out this great article written by Opta analyst from Giacomo Zanetello, talking about Italiano's Fiorentina this season. They're a bit of a weird beast this year. They are much better this year, like not on paper, but as in performance-wise, I think they're like 8 or 10 points better off than they were at the same point last season, which is amazing. But they don't look like it. Like, you watch Fiorentina play. Fiorentina used to be one of those teams that actually with Italiano's kind of mixed. I've always had my reservations. Like, I do like Italiano, but I think he was a little bit overhyped, a bit too much in terms of his style of play, because I don't think his style of play is that good to watch. It's just, it dominates the ball, but it's very boring. But this year it's gone even, I think, more than that. As it points out here, this is the third season for Italiano and Fiorentina. First year was a settling in period. Second year he did quite well and got to the Conference League final, which I was gutted he lost to West Ham. That would have been great for an Italian team to win it, and for Fiorentina 7th and 8th. And this season they're fourth in the Champions League spots, and as the title of this article says, are their Champions League dreams becoming a reality? Because their points per game is much higher this year. They're conceding less. They're not scoring as much, but they're conceding less. And they're still retaining just as much of the ball. There's some stats here. You can see possession-wise, they're even higher than they were in the highest points at the beginning of the Italiano era, 58.2. Field tilt, which means the dominance of the pitch, they're 69%, almost 60, almost 70%. They're first in the leagues. Possession-wise, they're second in the league. PPDA, you guys know I refer to this when talking about pressing. This is passes per defensive action. So that means they are the highest pressing team in Italy. You can see the progression over the years. They were 9th in Italiano's first season in terms of high pressing or pressing actions, and last 2 seasons they've been first. So this is the highest pressing team in Italy, the most intense pressing team in Italy, and they play with a very high line as well. And they have the highest number of turnovers this year, which means their pressing is actually very effective this year. They're winning the ball 9 times in high parts of the pitch with their pressing. So yeah, you can see all the different turnovers is the amount of times they won the ball, and the purple ones are the time the pressing has actually ended in a shot, which is not actually very good. Only 24 out of the 180 turnovers are turned into shots. So it means they're good at pressing, but then not much comes of it, which is why, as I say, I don't like watching them, because they don't actually create that much or very clean chances. And then only 2 of those ended up in goals. Of all this high pressing, only 2 of those things end up in goals. So it's more like the pressing, you could say, is more of a defensive tactic than an attacking tactic, is to win the ball back, but not necessarily create anything from it. And as we know, they do like crossing a lot with Biraghi. Biraghi is missing, but they cross a lot, 3rd most open play crosses. They get into the box a lot, 3rd most touches in the opposition box in Serie A. But again, as it says here, the average value of the shots is only 0.09, which is 14th in Serie A. So whatever their possession is, first in league, it doesn't lead to much. So yeah, and that's obviously since Dusan Vlahovic left, they've really not managed to replace him properly. Last season it was like Cabral, Jovic. This year is what's his name? Beltran up front, and Mbala and Zola. And you see, Mbala and Zola, when we talk about these strikers that we always say, maybe Inter should sign him or a higher team should sign him. And Zola was one of those guys that Spezia, everyone was like, he deserves a better team, and he does. And he's come to Fiorentina. I think he's got like 2 goals in Serie A, or 3 maximum. It shows that it's not the same playing for a Spezia and even this is talking about Fiorentina, who's still not to the level of an Inter or Milan or Juve. That step up is not easy for everyone, and they've been struggling with that. But still, it is a good team. It is a good team. Fiorentina definitely not going to be underestimating them, and it's away, so they're home. And this is one thing that gives me also a bit of a faith tomorrow, is that defensively they're not great. You can see the percentage of shots conceded from inside the box this season. This is the highest in the league, 72.9. Let's say 73%, even higher than Cagliari, Sassuolo, Frosinone, and Napoli. So it shows they are frail because of all this very, like I said, average line and the average offside line of their height. They play a very high line, and against Inter with Thuram, you're very, very likely to be punished. But let's get into it. This is the Fiorentina lineup. As I said, Biraghi's missing. Coyote is out, as in, well, they signed Faraoni recently from Hellas Verona, former Inter youth player Faraoni. Now he's 31, 32, experienced guy, but decent team. Of course, this is where the game will be won or lost, where we get to our midfield against Arthur, who has been one of the signings of the season. Great loan signing from Juve. Very neat and tidy player. Has been, in his own way, an upgrade to Amrabat, who I always liked Amrabat, but always felt like he was a little bit overrated after that World Cup that he had, and the Fiorentina haven't missed a beat without him. But apart from that, we know it's a very, individually, a lot of these players have got some individual nice moments. Bonaventura's had a good season, but Icone, Sottili, you never know what type of game you're going to get from them. And I don't rate Terracciano in goal, and the centre-backs as well. Not anything to scream about. But let's focus on our team, what we are here to talk about. And we have the change here, forced to Inzaghi, but it was about time. Honestly, I have wanted to see this exact midfield for a long, long time, since the beginning of the season, and in a proper game, not in a rotational Coppa Italia game. Frattesi coming in for Barella, who stupidly got himself banned, and Hakan, who got himself banned, but it was coming in the previous game, with Mickey in the middle. So Mickey got a lot on his shoulders. He's going to be the one marshalling and patrolling the other two. But this is it for ASLLANI, especially for ASLLANI. With Frattesi, it's not that kind of play. But we're talking about ASLLANI now, second season. We are waiting for him to step up to the plate, because we need to know that we have a guy in case Hakan is missing. Because we can't always rely on Hakan to be there all the time. And for future purposes as well, with our financial status, we need to know that someone like ASLLANI can step in, and we need him to step up to the plate tomorrow. And I know I'm not one of the many in this, but I still have faith in ASLLANI. I still rate him as a player. I still think he can be a great regista. So I hope to see that tomorrow. It's not going to be easy, but he needs to do it. At the back, some changes as well. De Vrij retains his starting spot. And Bastoni is a doubt, because he still has a bit of an issue since the Supercoppa, but it looks like he's back in the starting lineup, which is good to see. I don't want to burn Acerbi out. And Acerbi, we saw, remember, in that 4-3 game against Fiorentina last year, him against Icone, 1v1, if you play him left centre-back, that's a bit shaky. So I'd rather have Bastoni there, who should be a little bit more fresh as well. Pavard retaining, and Augusto coming in for Di Marco, which is a little bit of a surprise. I didn't see that actually up until now. But again, yeah, with Di Marco, he's played back-to-back lots of minutes, hasn't he? So we know physically that guy isn't, a peak athlete in general. So he probably doesn't need rotating. Whereas on the other hand, Darmian, we know that guy has the lungs of steel, similar to Mkhitaryan, and he can just keep going. But I hope Dumfries is ready to come in at some point. We really do need Dumfries to step back in. And again, I don't really see Buchanan making an appearance. And up front, we don't need to talk about it. Lautaro Thuram. But speaking of up front, as I was mentioned earlier, Milik got himself sent off for Juve today. He is the backup. I know we're talking a lot about, Arnautovic, Sanchez not being good enough backups for Inter. But who we're competing with, their backup is Milik. Their other backup, Moise Kean, looks like he's off to Atletico Madrid. So that's who we're competing with. And Milik has 2 goals, 1 assist this season. So the bar is on the floor. He's in hell, the bar. But surely Arnautovic and Sanchez can do better than Juventus's backups can or have until this point in the season. But yeah, that is the team. That is a good enough team for sure. For sure. I don't care what you say about that midfield. That team, that midfield still is good enough to beat Fiorentina, even though it's away. It's going to be a hard one. I don't predict a drubbing or it could be a high scoring game. But I hope they take this Juve draw to go ahead of them, because we can, we should take advantage of this, because this is how the Serie A table looks like at the moment. Milan are playing against Bologna, but who cares? They are 2 points ahead of us. If we win, we go ahead of them by 1 point, because next weekend is the biggie, Inter versus Juve. So we need to be ahead of them before that game. That's going to be crucial. That's going to be so important. So I hope the boys can do it. As I said, I think it's going to be a tricky game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going for a 3-2 win for Inter, or a 2-3 win for Inter. Frattesi to be on the score, Lautaro, Thuram, and then maybe some stupid mistakes at the back, but hopefully not. You guys let me know your predictions down below in the comments. Leave me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this preview. See you for the post-match reaction tomorrow, guys. Ciao ragazzi, forza Inter. Let's go. I want to see this team first tomorrow.